Përshëndetje, emri është Njonza, jam 70 vjeç edhe kam jetuar këtu në Amerikë për 70 vite tani. Um, Gjuha ime e parë ka qenë shqip, po edhe flas anglisht se jetoj këtu në Amerikë.
So you grew up speaking Albanian from when you were a kid, or did you learn it somewhere down the line?
No, it was my first language. So mom and dad and the entire family are all immigrants. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm first generation. So when I was growing up, we only really spoke Albanian in the house.
Both your parents Albanian?
The entire family, entire family.
Got it. And so, do you have any siblings that speak it as well?
So I have two sisters. My second sister, um, she could speak it when she was younger. Now she doesn't really speak it anymore. She just understands it. And so
Mm-hmm.
does my youngest sister. She also they understand it and they can speak a little, but they can't like converse.
And do you still speak it?
Yeah, I still speak it.
And would you consider yourself bilingual?
I consider myself bilingual, though I would say my English is better because, like I said, my education is in it. So like I can't talk about science in Albanian.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to be able to break down a lab for you in Albanian, but I can talk about life, have a conversation with you, get coffee, things like that.
And do you remember how you kind of acquired that language?
Yeah, I was so surrounded by it. Um, like even I grew up in Staten Island, New York, and there's a pretty big Albanian population there, and I'm pretty sure the majority of that population is my family.
Mm-hmm.
They were just always with me. So I just remember not having to really think about it. And then when I started going to school, like daycare, I started learning English because gotta communicate. So yeah, now that I'm older, I have to think about it a little bit. Like before I start talking to someone, I have to think about the conjugation of what I'm about to say or how I'm gonna say it.
Do you think it
Like
came?
I
Yeah.
miss
Yeah. Continue.
no. I was just gonna say like I miss the days when like it ebbed out so naturally.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're a child, like I don't remember what study proved this, but like when you're a kid, language just comes so much more naturally.
Mm-hmm. And do you think that because you're older, I think now you may have to consciously think about the conjugation, or like, do you think that that means that you are either, I guess, in your view, when you were younger, do you think that your grammar and that your sentences came out naturally, or do you think they were maybe a bit more, they came out more chopped and like they were chopped up and not as coherent as much as maybe now that you think about it?
I guess you could say that. But I guess because I was little, I didn't have to give long sentences like "I want milk." Just
Yeah.
say "I want milk." You
Yeah.
don't have to really give a long explanation as to why you desire the milk. Um, but I will say, obviously, now that I'm older, I have more complicated conversations with my parents. So yes, that would play into why it's maybe more difficult because obviously you're not having very deep or profound conversations at like 3 years old.
Mm-hmm. And were you exposed to people, I guess maybe outside of your family, that also spoke Albanian?
I want to say yes, but we were like the equivalent of an Amish family without, the bonnets and stuff, but just we had our own little community on Staten Island.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I definitely had friends that didn't speak Albanian, but it was pretty rare for us to meet someone who wasn't a related family member that also spoke the language.
Mm-hmm. And did you learn to read and write it?
So I know how to read and write it now. When I was little, I remember asking my dad to teach me. He was like, "It's spelled just like it sounds." I was like, that doesn't help. And then when I was older, I figured it out. Like it's not hard anymore, but the letters are different from the letters that we use in English. I was like, "Dad, it's not spelled exactly how it sounds. I don't know why you said that, but it's fine. I figured it out."
Mm-hmm. Is there anything in particular that you would, I guess, mention that is different in the Albanian, I guess, pronunciation or alphabet?
So it's a primitive language, which means, I should say ancient, not primitive, but it's a very ancient language. So ancient languages, the letters, you don't combine them to make sounds. A letter is the sound.
Mm.
So, like, the equivalent of that in English would be S and H. We combine those letters in order to make the sh sound, but in Albanian, the sh, like the combination of S and H would be its own thing.
Mm. Got it.
It's like in Albanian, we have the combination of X and H, which makes the J sound, and it confuses people so bad.
Mm-hmm.
You have, I don't know if you can tell on the Zoom call right now, my name has an E with an umlaut on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the that makes an entirely different sound from E without the umlaut, which is eh.
Mm-hmm.
So we have like different letters or letter combinations, kind of like that.
Did you ever get like mixed up when you were younger?
No, I actually didn't. Found it pretty easy to switch back and forth between the two. Again, I think it might have been something about just being a kid, not really having to think about it too much. And now I'm older and I'm way too analytical and overthink everything, but it just came naturally when I was younger.
And did you get like exposure to any Albanian literature? Like, did your parents ever read a book to you in Albanian, or was there anything in particular that kind of stuck with you that you remember?
Yeah, well, my parents would always, I don't remember if they read, but they would tell me a lot of oral stories in Albanian, or teach me like jingles or songs that they had learned as children. So I grew up with that a lot. And then they had old black and white movies that they used to watch as kids in Albanian, so I would watch that as well. And oh my God, they had the Albanian dubbed Disney movies that I would watch. So like I watched Shrek in Albanian first. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you've ever seen it. There's this movie called Prince of Egypt. I watched that in Albanian. Yeah, it's so different in English, but I always thought that was funny. But yes, I was surrounded by, I wouldn't say like quality literature. Now that I'm older, I asked my grandma the other day to lend me a book. She has so many, from one famous Albanian author called Ismail Kadare. He's apparently really difficult, so I don't know how I'm gonna fare in terms of reading him in Albanian, but that's probably the first time that I've picked up like real literature from my people. Yeah.
And do you strongly identify with that culture and language?
Yeah, it was a process, I'll say, because when I was younger, I mean, again, you don't think about that, but I think all bilinguals, or at least first generation immigrants, have this. Like, I had a midlife crisis at like the age of 12, I want to say. I didn't know what to identify as, like Albanian or American. On one end, I felt, I don't know why, like I hated the fact that I was so foreign around my peers. You know, like none of them spoke another language with their grandparents. None of them brought like weird food to school per se. Like, I don't know if you've ever watched the beginning of My Big Fat Greek Wedding, but there's this scene where Tula, the protagonist, is complaining about how she has all of this like smelly Greek food that she used to bring in for lunchtime, and the kids make fun of it. I was like, yes, girl, same. I feel that, you know. But I kind of resolved it when I moved to Manhattan, because Staten Island, I mean, everyone's pretty much the same, apart from like the immigrant communities that are scattered throughout. When I moved to Manhattan, I started to be proud of being Albanian, but of being an Albanian American as well. So now I love the country and I love the language, and I try so hard to immerse myself so I don't forget that part of myself. Like, oh yeah, I'm wearing the Albanian flag necklace.
Yep.
Because I really do value that part of my identity, but I also love the fact that I get to call myself an Albanian American, you know.
And like, how do you think that impacted who you are? Because it sounds like it's really embedded in you. And like, I guess, what do you think that maybe you do differently that people that are just either maybe second generation immigrants or people that don't have that that family history, like how do you think that makes you different?
Well, for one, and this might be kind of specific to America, but I value my freedom and my like the constitutional liberties that I have as an American so much more, because I just remember as a child my parents and grandparents telling me every day, because Albania is a former communist country,
Mm-hmm.
used to tell me every day, like, you have so many opportunities that we never had. If only I had the education that you have. If only I had freedom. Like, they would tell me, like, it was, now that I've gotten older, like, they'll tell me, like, horror stories about the secret police spying on them or losing family members. They tell me, you're so lucky to live in America. You
Mm-hmm.
have the freedom that we wanted, we protested for so many years. And that, it makes me so proud on one end that I come from a family that had to live through that, and now they value freedom so much and they respect the country so much. Like, that really, that makes me very happy, but it also makes me treasure, you know, my family and the culture so much more, I think.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And is there anything that you like specifically about your language, or anything that maybe you even dislike?
Okay, like, I love the way it sounds. It has a lot of the sh and ch sounds, so like it's very euphonious in my opinion. I mean, there's definitely like whenever I'm talking to my mom, Albanians tend to like speak in a really impassioned way, and people always think that we're mad at each other. Like, no, we're just talking about how beautiful the day is or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I do like the way it sounds, and I love the terms of endearment that it has. If you're telling someone that you love them, you like we have affectionate titles. So like the most common I can think of is Zamer, which means heart, but it's like a abbreviated version of saying you are as dear to me as my own heart is.
Mm-hmm.
We just have terms of endearment like that I think are very affectionate and sweet, and English doesn't do love as much justice sometimes in the way that we communicate love. Dislike, we were Albanians, not we, I shouldn't say we, Albanians were conquered by the Ottoman Empire for 500 years. So a lot of Turkish words have mixed into the Albanian language, which bothers me to the nth degree because it just makes me sad knowing that I'm not speaking the same language, like the original pure form of the language that like my ancestors were thousands of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I guess for anyone who might be interested in learning Albanian, is there anything that you would want to point out about the language, or any kind of advice that you would give?
Yo, it's mad hard. I still get tripped up all the time because the grammar is just. When I started learning Spanish, I was like, what? There's two conjugations? Like, that, like Albanian is, it's the amount of declensions and conjugations is unlimited. It's insane. The only way to learn it is really to immerse yourself, to speak it with other people, to read it, to watch TV shows in it. Yeah, that's honestly the best advice I can offer, because if you just sit down with like a grammar book, I'm serious, you're never going to get anywhere. It's too difficult.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I know it's very different from its neighbors' languages, just because it was from, I believe, like the old Illyrian languages and stuff.
Yes,
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it developed very differently, and I think it has, I'm not sure, because there are other languages like Hungarian and a few others that I can't remember off the top of my head, that linguists are like, yeah, they kind of just appeared, and there's not any close relative to it.
Yeah.
Or, yeah, at least not in modern day.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have any comparative languages that you could be like, oh, it's like Russian or something. People always ask me if I'm Russian. I'm like, I don't know how you came up with that. Like, it doesn't sound anything like Russian. I don't look Russian. Like, I don't. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You get a lot of that mix up, like in day-to-day life. Like, is it consistent?
Wait, repeat the question. Hold on, I'm sorry. I'm just going to get a more comfortable position.
So, like, do you get that a lot? That you're like Russian, or or do people mistaken you for anything else?
Oh my God, people like for the life of them cannot figure out what I am, and it's really weird because I think it's pretty obvious that I look Eastern European in my opinion, but then again, that's just me.
Mm-hmm.
But I get all over the board. A lot of people think I'm Middle Eastern or Iranian, Persian. I get that pretty frequently. Someone thought I was half Korean one time. Another person guessed every Hispanic country, and I was like, no, I blessings to Latin America and Spain, but I'm not, no. Yeah, it's all over the board, but Russian is pretty frequent. That's, I'd say, of all of the guesses I get, Russian is the most asked and the most confusing.
Has anyone ever gotten it right that you're Albanian?
Only Albanians. There's an Albanian stare, like we know. We'll see each other across the room and be like, I know it's you. You know?
Mm-hmm. All right, so the last thing I want to do is just quickly see if you can describe this image. So let me just pull it up. And alrighty, here it is. So, what would you say is going on in this image?
Just closing up. So it's, oh, okay. At first I was gonna say it's a man sitting down at a table typing something up on his computer, but he doesn't look fully human to me because of his ears, and the suit looks kind of spacey, so it might be like an extraterrestrial being.
All right.
Yeah, he's smiling, so it's probably looking up something that he likes.
Mm-hmm. All right, awesome. So yeah, that's pretty much it, and thank you very much for being here. You know, it really means a
Of course,
lot.
thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. All right, so for everyone else watching, there's other languages as well that you want to share. Definitely feel free to. And yeah, that's about it. And thank you for watching.